So Dressed and Press has been called out for stealing a variety of content, and today we're going to be going over the allegation, which includes accusation of theft regarding monster heels, the intellectual property infringement that they have continuously allegedly done against certain brands, stealing from smaller artists, and the lack of accountability. Dressed and Press often likes to just remove, quote, stolen assets from their game without really saying anything and just labels it as a rework. In my opinion, stealing assets and getting them taken down by people or taking them down because of backlash and redoing an asset, they're not the same thing. But that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm delusional. Now, anytime I talk about situations like this, there's always people in the comment section. They're like, Pommy, you're so hateful. You hate the game. You're so negative. Babe, being hateful and holding people accountable are two different things, okay? Holding someone accountable is not inherently mean and it's not bad. It's important. And I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, well, like some of them are kids, so they maybe won't know. If you steal something and you're a child, you still stole it and you're still gonna get charged with that, And I think, obviously this isn't like stealing a candy bar in a store, it's different, it's online. But at the end of the day, your age does not exempt you from being held accountable if you do something wrong. And my intention isn't to cancel anybody, but to hold people accountable, because I don't like the narrative where games can just push stuff like this under the rug, especially when they're targeting smaller creators, which we'll get into in a second here. Another issue I would like to highlight is that a lot of larger creators just aren't talking about this, and it's really unfortunate in my opinion. And I understand if you don't necessarily want to create drama content, that's fine. Okay, whatever, that's your cup of tea. But if you're gonna make content talking about the B-Play situation, or you're gonna make content talking about It Girl and how they were accused of stealing, and then not talk about it when it comes to Dressed and Press because you're in their influencer program, I think that's disingenuous, and I think it really does disservice to the community, because you're in a position of power where you can have some sort of input as to what happens, and when you're not talking about something but rush to talk about a competitor in a negative light, I think that's disingenuous. But hey, maybe that's just my opinion. Also, there's gonna be watermarks in this video because, y'all, what is with the thing in larger influencers scalping content for my videos? I don't understand it. This large influencer, even after I put watermarks in, still took screenshots with watermarks and put them in their video. And it's like really obvious it has like watermark in it. So now we're still having watermarks, so at least when someone steals from me, I get, some recognition a little bit. But anyways, getting straight into it. The first thing we're going to go over is these monster heels. So for those of you that don't know, these were available with the Battle Pass, and they're honestly really cool looking. Okay, these are very, very cool looking high heels, and some people quickly realized, hey, I feel like I've seen this before, and they were right. If you look at this image in the middle, this is the one from Dressed and Press, and the one on the right here is from a shoe designer that is based in Paris. Now, this is the shoe designer's Instagram, and they posted this. This was their first set of heels. It reads Monster Heels 2018, first heels I ever made. And what I think is important to highlight here is that this is a small creator. This is a shoe designer that is based in Paris, and they have I think 6,000 followers. So I'm not saying they're insignificant, but they're obviously a smaller creator. It would be different if it was like a multi-billion-dollar company. Not to say that's right either, but I think especially when you are taking concepts basically directly from smaller creators and scalping them, I think that's really harmful, because it undermines all the effort and creativity that went into creating this, right? And the other issue that arose is that it costs money to get these shoes in the game, and so it would be a little bit different, which it's still unethical to take content from somebody and not credit them appropriately, but to take content from somebody and not get permission to sell it, you're therefore monetizing off of it and using it for commercial uses, which is something that you can get sued for. That is illegal. You can't do that. That's a big no-no, okay? And what's sad about this is that a lot of the comments that are here are saying, please make sure you copyright their asses. Friends have no right stealing your work. Sorry, Dressed and Press stole your design. It's nothing new for them to steal designs, unfortunately. And then there's this long comment, which reads, hi, just let you know, Dressed and Press was, or still is, run by a bunch of 17 to 20-year-olds. They tend to take inspiration pictures straight from Pinterest and then turn them into 3D models in a game. I'm 100% positive that they did not mean any harm, and that they definitely did not think about the fact that there are artists behind every work that they see on Pinterest. It's of course unfair for them to completely steal your design and put it behind a paywall without you earning a dime. As an artist myself, I know the frustration. I'm not justifying their actions, but just wanted to point out that they're not understanding their concepts of copyright, and this is not the first time this must stop. I don't think this person meant any harm, but I have to say this, okay? If there was a company, which Dressed and Press is, right? If they have the smarts, the aptitude, the understanding to have collaborations with famous singers, Charlie XCX, to have collaborations with popular movies, with famous people like Ariana Grande, Wicked, and have that in their game to produce a whole line of dolls, which it's not an easy feat. You're literally having production occur typically overseas. Like, this is a whole operation. You have to get designing done, package designing, distribution. You have to get stores like Walmart on board, which they do. They're literally selling their assets in one of the biggest stores in the entire world. And to say, oh, maybe they didn't know. Babe, that's like saying a robber didn't know they were stealing when they held onto somebody's head and stole their money out of their purse. Like, what are you talking about right now? And I'm not trying to be mean or hateful, but to claim ignorance, I do not think is a justifiable excuse in this situation. You're 17 years old, great, fabulous, you're not an adult yet, you can still drive a car. Okay, babe? You can drive a car, and I can guarantee these people are making a ton of money off this game. And if you're making a ton of money and you're filing taxes for the game, and you probably have an accountant, and you have all these people you're hiring, that's cool, that's awesome. But you can't claim that, oh, they probably didn't know. They're just a little baby. You're just a little baby. Like, they didn't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but I don't think the amount of detail that is the exact same with these shoes and the shoes in the game is excusable. Whoever made these, maybe the owner wasn't aware of it, who knows, but whoever made these assets, at the end of the day, knew they were stealing. That is my opinion, right? And as an owner, it's your job to do your due diligence and double check. Example, when I had a thumbnail and somebody took a screenshot of a popular Twitter influencer's profile, or that my artist did, and they pixelated it and changed it, and I didn't realize, I asked them to make a fake profile, they didn't understand that there was a bit of a language barrier, and they used a popular influencer's banner in my thumbnail talking about a situation that was pretty sensitive, and then I started getting messages about it. I immediately went and paid somebody else to revise the thumbnail and to change it. I went ahead to Twitter and made a public statement saying, I'm so sorry, I had no idea, and I messaged that person personally and said, I'm so sorry, like, at the end of the day, you know, it's my responsibility to be double checking my content, I take full accountability, I'm so sorry, that was not my intention, you know, I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. And, you know, that's what I think is important in these situations. Although maybe the creator didn't directly do this, if it's your game, you have a responsibility to make sure the content that's going out is not stolen. And on top of that, to paywall this content and to have this content be paid is a whole other issue, because this person is a small creator. They are a small fashion designer, and getting exposure from a game like Just Impress, although it's Roblox, that exposure could change their life. That exposure could, you know, help boost their career and help get them more sales and, you know, really push their content out there and could help them financially. And instead, Just Impress is profiting off of the work of somebody else without crediting them. Like, that is just, it's so illegal. It's not even funny, okay? Like, the whole issue of copyright, it's just, I'm not a lawyer, but even me, like, sitting here, I know that's so illegal. And for people that are like, oh, well, maybe the creator knew about it and they said it was okay. They literally posted this on their story, which I got from a Reddit thread, which I will link all the places I got this in the comment section below. But it reads, play Dressed Impress, question mark, question mark, question mark. You're copying and it's not even pretty. I love how the original creator just, like, locked them. Like, this is just, like, it's not an accident in my opinion. This is not an accident from my perspective. This comment reads, which is under the Reddit post, they should hire a fashion designer for them, someone who knows how to make concepts that aren't stolen from others. Period. Snap for applause. To me, it sounds like they are taking images off Pinterest and then directly recreating them as 3D models, which, introduction, is what a lot of 3D modelers do. They'll take inspiration, they'll plaster the picture in Blender, and they'll model it. But the difference is, first of all, crediting people for inspiration, which I think is important, especially when you're a massive, super famous game that's like the biggest game on Roblox currently. And two, to add your own creative twist. There's a difference between taking inspiration from somebody and then directly stealing an asset, and even though you made it, very obviously, like, when, like, over 70% of the asset is exactly the same as the original one, I think that's still theft, okay? It has to be at least, like, a 40 is the original, 6% is your own, for, in my opinion, for it to be qualified as being your own content. And what you'll find, actually, is that, example, at a lot of art conventions, when you sell art or you're doing stuff in a, you know, a monetized setting, a lot of conventions will have rules that 70% of the art has to be your own and 30% can be, like, you know, fan art of different fandoms and stuff like that. And that typically is what qualifies as being, like, your original art and stuff like that. And I think that can be applied here. And I just think it's really not fair to take content without properly crediting people and then not even, like, tweak it a little bit. It's giving, like, you can copy my homework, but don't make it too obvious. And then they change one answer. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not. Then they go on to say they are stealing designs and aren't even hiding it. Once you start to look into so many items from the game are posted, often without permission, on Pinterest for clothing and other items, and they're ripping them off. They need a full-time employee who is a fashion designer and can make concepts from a variety of inspiration and not live from a single source. This is the emphasis here. The issue, in my opinion, is that they only take example of these shoes from what I can see, and this is my opinion, reference and inspiration from a single source. Fashion designers, and when people make original concepts, there's nothing in this world that is 100% original. I'm not going to sit here and act like it is, okay? There is in no way that you can make something that's 100% original and is 100% your own, because there's always going to be stuff that's kind of similar. But what's important, especially when you're doing anything artistic, is that you take reference from multiple examples, so you create something entirely new based off of multiple things. You can still take inspiration from stuff, that's not the issue here. The issue is solely taking inspiration from one person and then not crediting them at all and then profiting off of it. That's not okay. There's also comments under here saying, not only did they steal it, but they also put it behind a paywall. Sorry guys, I had a lot of caffeine before I recorded this. This person responds that the real artist probably didn't even get a dime, and this person responds definitely didn't get a dime. And I think by the response from the artist on their Instagram story, we can confirm that they most likely did not get any sort of compensation for their assets being recreated and used without their permission in Dress to Impress. Now, the other asset I saw people speculating had been stolen was this one, the demonic Labubu, which is what I'm going to call it because it looks creepy. Sorry. The demonic Labubu from Dress to Impress. Now, this Labubu thing, which is what a lot of people called, and a lot of people were claiming this got removed for being a, quote, Labubu. No, babe. No. This was not removed for being a Labubu, like some people are speculating. It was removed from being a blatant copy of this artist on Instagram, Stuffed Serotonin. Now, I do have, again, the credit for I got this from the Reddit thread in the description below, but as you can see, there's this image, and it has these two plushies, and keep in mind, pay attention to this. These are handmade plushies by this creator, so it's not like some mass-produced thing. They have a star pattern on their left eye, and a diamond on the right. I guess if you flip it's the other way, but from the way I'm looking at it, okay? They have a little clown nose and a little upside-down, spread-out kind of V, and this, like, collar that's really cute, right? Which, side note, I might order one of these when I'm done. But if you go ahead and you look at the example of what they put, they just have each eye as a heart, which, okay, fine. And this little clown thing and this nose, right? It's very, very, very similar. Regardless, you can see there's a lot of similarities between this jester plushie, or this plushie here, which, what do they call it? New in shop, two twin clowny babes is what they're calling them, compared to the jester plush. This, in my opinion, there's just too many similarities, especially, like, look at even like the face cutout. Like the face, like, center part is white and the rest is beige. In my opinion, it's too similar for comfort. And again, this is a smaller creator. I think it's really unfair to, it's not a direct copy like the shoes, in my opinion, were. This is but really like heavy inspiration and still requires crediting appropriately. And when Dress to Impress was called out for this, they made a post, and no hate to this moderator because it's obviously not the moderator's fault, but it writes, "What is the lamb doll? Due to an issue with the jester doll, we've replaced it with our new lamb doll. Please do not open tickets for this issue." So I guess they're getting some backlash in the Discord server. And, like, I do take issue with this, and not to be super negative or critical, but it's like, why don't you say the real reason? Yeah, guys, a lot of people are accusing us of stealing from a smaller creator, and low-key, it's like really similar, so you know what, we're just gonna replace it. But instead, this completely evades any sort of accountability. It evades, the gravity of what has happened, and they're just trying to push it under the rug and be like, yeah, oops. Anyways, next. And what I also have an issue with is, please do not open tickets for this issue. It's like, hey guys, we didn't take accountability and we swept it under the rug, but we've replaced it, so you guys can't talk about it anymore. And if you do, we're not gonna pay attention to your ticket. Like, what? People can't, what? It's so silly, in my opinion. So anyways, this is the lamb doll that replaced it, which it's really cute. I wish they would have just started with that. It's so adorable. And the issue too is they always use the word in their thing, which sometimes is valid, but a lot of the times they like to use the word rework, which they use interchangeably when they've been found to, quote, steal an asset and then replace it or change it. They say, oh guys, we reworked it. Reworking means to make changes to an original version of something, which, can it be an original version if it's already stolen from somebody else, allegedly? I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, on top of that, there is this comment here, which reads, the legal implication of shoe and jester plushie change. And this person, I don't think is a lawyer, so keep that in mind, but I thought this is interesting. It reads, it seems like this time, they could not walk away from stealing the designs. The artist must have contacted the team by threatening to complain. Designs are considered as intellectual property. Yes, the art forms may be used for, quote, fair use. For example, writing a book review or explaining a painting or poem. Dress to Impress up badly because the shoes are available in paid version of the Baddie Pass, i.e. Diamond Pass, overtly showing that they are profiting off the design without even providing credit to the artist. For the Jester plushie, which was again stolen design, the very move to remove it solidifies this explanations. The plushie was a Baddie Pass free version, yet due to the option provided to skip levels of Pass by Robux, had brought them into trouble. So this is something I want to talk about. There's a lot of people that get confused about fair use, and I'm not a lawyer, but, you know, because of my commentary channel, I did have to educate myself on this kind of stuff so that I can't, you know, be sued, and I have to be careful with, like, obviously the way I word things, especially when it's talking about, like, a big game, example, Roblox. I don't want Roblox to get mad at me, so I have to be careful how I word things. But in the aspect of how it works with, you know, fair use typically applies to, you know, sections of commentary, education, for journalism, stuff like that. So example, me using Dressed to Impress as image in this video, legally, they have no grounds to try to take my video down for copyright infringement or anything like that because I'm using it in a transformative way to comment on it. If I was just uploading the Dressed to Impress trailer that they released and was just like, look at this trailer, and I didn't say anything, then they can take down my video for copyright infringement. But because I'm using it in a transformative way and I'm discussing it, there's no legal grounds to take my video down or to, you know, pursue any legal action against me. Now, when it comes to, you know, stealing assets, there's a difference with fair use and, you know, taking something and monetizing off of it. Now, obviously my channel is monetized, and so I make profit from making videos, but that doesn't change the reason why I make them. I make videos because this is something that interests me. And although I'm making profit by talking about this stuff, that doesn't qualify as still not being fair use. Fair use applies to stuff regardless of if you're profiting off of it or not. However, what doesn't apply to fair use is when you are directly taking assets without any sort of change or any sort of, you know, modification to it, in the sense that it becomes, you know, something else, it becomes a new item, and then reselling it and hiding it behind a paywall. So when you have assets, although you can never make a fully unique, brand new asset, the issue arises when there is very little change to the original asset and it's very obviously taken from somebody else, so much so that the creator of the original shoe had to make a statement about it and discuss it. I think it's harmful to take assets from smaller creators and to sell them, to profit off them. It'd be a little bit different if this was some 12-year-old with a passion project. They're like, oh, like, I like this shoe. It's still technically theft, but it's not like as bad as a multi-million-dollar game, which is what I would speculate this game is because of how popular it is, which, to be honest, I don't fully know. I would assume they're probably worth a lot because they have a whole toy brand now. But for a game that is so profitable and is so well-known on Roblox, to take assets from smaller creators allegedly and then just turn it to a 3D model, that doesn't mean that it's therefore then your content. It's still at its root the same content that originally was. It doesn't qualify as a new asset because it hasn't changed its form. It's still the exact same thing, just presented differently, if that makes sense. I know it's a whole very like confusing situation to explain, but there hasn't been enough changes to the asset for it to be qualified as being new. Now, on top of that, there has been allegations for a very long time that Dressed to Impress has been taking inspiration or content from other, you know, groups without their permission. This one, which has since been removed from the game, I believe. Do y'all think Gigi, aka owner of Dressed to Impress, can get sued for using Madoka? I don't know how to say that last part, I'm not even gonna try. Magical girl's outfit and profiting from it. This is another issue, okay? There has been consistent issues with Dressed to Impress taking assets from other groups and, you know, recreating them in a game. And it's one thing to recreate something for a passion project. It's another thing, again, to profit off of something that you have not credited people for. What I think is important to know is that Madoka is a copywritten character, okay? It's trademarked, which means you can't just steal it. You can't just take it and then use it for transformative purposes. There's a difference between intellectual property, which has to do with the creator's right to their own assets, i.e. the shoes. I would assume the monster shoes aren't trademarked or copywritten, but when it comes to a character where there's merch and content made of that character, it is then copywritten. So, example, if I search up Madoka trademark owned by, it will let me know. Madoka, explore trademark details. It's owned by Daikin Indus Ltd, a Japanese company headquartered in Osaka. So that is who owns the trademark to this, and it was registered in the UK on March 1st, 2018. So obviously you have to register trademarks in different countries for it to be valid sometimes, and there's a whole trademark issue sort of thing with different countries, and I'm not going to get into all that because that's just above my scope of knowledge. But basically, this company has this character trademarked. And so when another group takes the assets and takes heavy inspiration from the Madoka outfit and recreates it, although they're changing, and it goes from being a physical item to a digital item, it's still so heavily referenced that this group does have the legal authority to pursue legal action after this game. And I don't think that's what happened here. I think as Dresden Press got bigger, initially when they made the game, they just added assets that people liked because it was a smaller game and who really cares, right? At the end of the day, who cares? Once you become a bigger game and you start getting, invited to Roblox events and you're representing Roblox as a multi-billion-dollar company, and you're using their platform to make money and you're making earnings and you have a toy line and stuff like that, you then open yourself up for a lot more liability. Because at the end of the day, companies aren't going to sue you unless you have money. It doesn't make sense for this Japanese company to sue Dresden Press for this asset when they were smaller, because Dresden Press probably didn't make a lot of money. The whole point of suing is to receive money from damages that were inflicted on you. And the way that you prove damages is typically through the sales of items that directly violated your trademark. So it's trademark infringement. And what they end up doing is they would in fact sue Dresden Press, and in turn, Dresden Press would be forced to typically take down the asset or issue an apology or give them money back for damages. And because Dresden Press was so small, there was no incentive for a large company like this to sue them. It just didn't make sense. They probably didn't have enough money to pay what this company would have sued them for. But now that Dresden Press is bigger and making more money, they have to be a lot more careful legally, and I would hope that they have a lawyer with their game to kind of regulate what's going on here. But they have to have a lawyer to, go over content and make sure that everything is abiding by trademark laws and, isn't inflicting on anybody's intellectual property, because that can open them up for litigation and a lawsuit, which in turn could lose them a lot of money and damage the reputation of the game. So there's a lot of stuff to this. There's a lot of details to it, and that's why I would speculate this was taken down. I don't think there's any legal action against them for this, but it is true. They could be open to litigation if this was still in the game, because they are a bigger game now, and there is actually some benefit to suing them because they, I would assume, have probably decent money. This comment reads, it's a Roblox game, bro. Companies don't care about it enough to bother with suing. Well, I think this is technically enough for a court case. The worst that would likely happen is that the game gets taken down. Most likely, nothing will happen. Again, I have to be careful when I word this. I'm not a lawyer. I think this stuff is very interesting. It's like my special interest. But, when you have a situation like this, it would depend on who they would sue. It's kind of like a 50-50 between whether they would try to sue the game directly. But chances are, they would probably sue Roblox first, or send them a letter of intent saying that they intend to sue them. Stuff like that, where they would typically go after the bigger fish. Usually in the whole suing world, you want to go after the person that has the most money. And obviously Roblox is a multi-billion-dollar company, and at the end of the day, they are accountable for any content on their platform. And so if, this company decided that, hey, this is infringing on our trademark, they would probably send Roblox a letter. And at first, it would send them a letter, be like, hey, remove this. And then Roblox would then communicate that to Dresden Press before any actual legal action happens. But it really just depends on the company and how malicious they want to be or how aggressive they want to be. But regardless, I think typically when there is any sort of issues with intellectual property, example, with the radios in Roblox, there's a reason you don't have access to Ed Sheeran songs anymore. And the funny Ed Sheeran, the head game where he was a giant head and would chase you around a forest, was taken down because their record label came after Roblox and threatened to sue them, and I think they did actually end up suing them, but Roblox, in response to that, to avoid getting sued in the future, had to take off all assets that referenced those individuals because they didn't want to get into more legal trouble. And so that's what I would assume would happen in this case. If anyone was to sue anybody, they would probably want to sue Roblox because they have the most action. But anyways, or the most money is what I meant to say. There's also stuff with this where someone's put this together saying, oh, look, they take really heavy inspiration from IRL stuff, which in my opinion, I don't think any of this stuff is really that bad. I think it's natural for a game to inevitably copy things. The only one that I think is not so great is this one at the bottom here. I think this is very obviously copied really heavily from this. It's the exact same thing. But at the end of the day, taking heavy inspiration versus directly stealing something is different. And this one too, the K one, it doesn't say K on this, I don't think it says something else, but there's obviously games, when they make articles of clothing, you can't make it super different. At the end of the day, there's only a certain amount of clothing that exists in the world, and you can't just make up new clothing items that have never existed before. It just doesn't make sense. And so I understand to a degree stuff's gonna be very similar, but the fact here that a lot of these assets, they don't even change the coloring on, I think is not helping the situation. A lot of these assets are just the exact same color, which I know you can change colors in the game, but for the generic asset sitting there on the mannequin to be the same color as the reference they used, it's not helping the allegations that they don't have, a lot of creativity and they were just very quick to take stuff from other games or from real life stuff, which is not a crime to take inspiration from something, but it is, however, a direct violation of someone's intellectual property to directly steal their original creativity creation and sell it for profit without crediting them or asking them or even giving them any portion of the earnings. But anyways, again, I do have to clarify, I'm not a lawyer. This stuff is just my special interest. I find this whole thing very, very interesting and would encourage you guys to not send any hate to this game. Obviously, that's not the intent of this video. It's more so just to kind of bring some awareness and education to the situation so you guys can understand, you know, what kind of has been going on and why stuff like this happens and like kind of like the meaning behind it and what all it entails, because it's a lot more than just alleged stealing. It has to do with a lot of systemic issues with smaller creators often being victimized and having their content stolen by larger creators because larger creators assume they don't have the power to speak out and they don't have enough following to actually make a big deal about it, which I think is really harmful, and it spreads a narrative that, you know, big companies and big games can get away with whatever they want. But regardless, you know, obviously this has been an issue in Dresden Press, and I really do hope that one, this stops, and two, they make a statement about it. You know, I understand there's a saying in the influencer world that you can't get canceled unless you allow yourself to be canceled, and it is very true. If you don't acknowledge something, like something is completely fake and it's going out about you, if you don't acknowledge it, it just goes away. The second you talk about it, there's 1,000 people making videos about it, me, talking about it, and commentary channels discussing your response. At the end of the day, your response will never be good enough for everybody. There's always going to be people that criticize it. But when you actually do something abhorrent, in my opinion, and do something that is bad and, you know, directly take assets from other creators, in my opinion, it is your responsibility as a game to talk about it and not to just sweep it under the rug and be like, oh guys, look at our collab with Wicked, sparkle, sparkle, sparkle. Like, what? And that's what a lot of people have said, that it's interesting that this Wicked collab announcement drops as soon as these allegations start to resurface. I think it's, in my opinion, it just seems kind of like a tactic to distract from like the real issue behind the scenes. And my intention, again, isn't to cancel Dresden Press. That's not the intention here. The intention is for accountability to be had and for, you know, smaller creators to have their intellectual property respected. It's not fair for larger games to profit off of stolen content, in my opinion, from other creators. I think it's disingenuous, I think it's unethical, and I think it's unfair. And it sets a really poor example for younger creators on what is acceptable in the Roblox space, and Roblox needs to be more, you know, involved in these situations to take action against creators who repeatedly violate the intellectual property and rights of other creators outside of Roblox. But regardless, there's a lot to this. There's a lot of legalities behind this stuff, and I'm not a lawyer, so I really can't sit here and act like I 100% know this stuff. I just think this is very interesting, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and I genuinely do hope that Dresden Press, a game that is obviously run by a lot of talented developers, will, you know, have the initiative and will take the step to apologize to the people that they've stolen content from, allegedly, and to, you know, take steps to hire maybe a clothing designer or hire someone to oversee any content that is added to the game to ensure that it is not stolen from other people. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot that goes into modeling an asset, there's a lot that goes into testing an asset and to implementing it into a game, and to assume that through all those steps, not once did anybody realize, hey, this is stolen, I think is very hard to believe. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Do you think it's just a coincidence? Do you think it was an accident? How do you think Dresden Press can fix this? Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye!